Spaces dropped a little earlier than normal. Gwen missed the post on the music. She'll work on it. She'll try to hit that next time. But it's Soccer Down here. It's the evening edition. These happen sometimes because of travel schedules, and this is one of those days. Atlanta United last night in Mexico. It was a scoreless draw. Atlanta lost the ensuing penalty shootout that we didn't know was definitely going to happen until, I want to say about the 80th minute. So, these things happen. It's preseason. There was a trophy that Leones Negros won, but then graciously gifted to Atlanta United as a thank you for coming and playing in this match to honor the Estadio Jalisco. It was a very interesting night. It was preseason. There's negative to talk about. There's positive to talk about. There are lots of things to talk about. That's what Overreaction Wednesday is all about. And get used to Overreaction Wednesday because we've got it today. We'll have it next week. We'll have it the week after. Next week will be in this time slot for Overreaction Wednesday. The week after will be in the normal time slot. But Overreaction Wednesday is becoming a thing, John.
And with getting the chance to look at the match last night and taking of my handwritten, written quickly, allegedly copious notes, I now have to sort out.
It's something sometimes.
Yeah, it's illegible at most of the time.
For me, it is.
Maybe I should have been a physician in a past life, considering how quickly I try to write something down.
You would have fit right in. It's true. So I hope you can read your handwriting because I did not want to take your notes because I have no idea what you were trying to say.
Yeah, it's who's the guy that created the drawings that look the same in different directions? It's like if it's it's like two separate colors, but the design is the same, and you look at it from both directions. Is that an Escher drawing? Is that the guy?
I don't know for sure, actually. I'm sure one of our listeners will know and be able to tell us here shortly.
So sometimes that's what my handwriting looks like. I either have written a prescription for someone who just got out of a doctor's office, or it's an Escher print to where I can't even figure out what it is.
I'm going to go with the former. I'm not going to give you artistic credit for your bad handwriting.
No, but I do give John Roper a lot of credit after watching the match last night.
Yes?
He says he watched the stream and thought, MLS needs some halftime entertainment. Thoughts? Hashtag Overreaction Wednesday.
Yeah, they played the best World Cup song of all time, Ricky Martin's Cup of Life. That was cool. Heard some Beyonce in there as well. It was a good mix. The DJ did good work. I would put the stadium DJ up there with stadium DJs around the league. I think Vancouver might still have the best. Vancouver still was the best pregame music. But yeah, halftime entertainment, I'm down with this.
Because I know that a lot of folks were mentioning about the cheer brigade that was in center circle and the DJ and all of those elements that were part of it last night.
Look, when people want to throw shots at American soccer and different things that we do with soccer here, cheerleaders happen in other countries too. Mexico's had them. England has had cheerleaders for soccer teams. It's happened. And mascots with giant lion heads. I like their mascot.
As long as it's not a mascot that has a head that you can't figure out what it is, like the sun on the stick. Was it Partick Thistle who had that one?
No, that's just stupid. There's good mascots and there's just stupid. And a sun on a stick is the epitome of stupid.
Yeah, Partick Thistle. That was definitely a mascot that should not have been very mascotty. But no, I mean, it was interesting watching the stream last night, and it was a chance for Atlanta United to get some work done at altitude as they get ready to be at altitude again very, very soon. And I know that a lot of folks have overreacted.
Let's be clear about that. It's not as bad, but yes, last night it definitely had an effect.
Like in the 60th, I want to say, in the 75th, it looked like there were 2 points that they had to kind of push through.
It felt like, around the 60-minute mark, once you got through the boost of energy from the halftime break, to somewhere in that 70 to 75-minute mark. I mean, the legs were incredibly heavy, but they found a last reserve of energy and actually created some of their best chances late. So, it's a work in process. It's not where it needs to be, and I don't think anybody would say that it is, but you're not going to be playing your best right now, period. If this is your best, well, then you're not winning anything. You can't. You can't be at your best in February and expect to win things. You have to improve, and there are things to take out of it that point you in a positive direction. There's things that are concerning. The attacking phase of play, the patterns, they're not developing as fast as you'd like. Teams are making it difficult to find Joseph Martinez. Ezequiel Barco and Pity Martinez are having space. It's different in terms of where they're finding that space. And last night it took a while for them to figure out, I think, how to use that space and be effective. They need more from out wide. It's something that will come, but it's something that's not there yet. And it's just finding the right combinations. Last night you had to deal with Miles Robinson going out, and I don't have an update. I've seen the same reports that a lot of you have on Twitter. I would tell you that the person tweeting it, Roger Gonzalez, he's affiliated with, I think, CBS Sports Network. He's based out of South Florida. His Twitter updates like this are 50-50 in terms of being accurate. There's been a lot of transfer stuff that has not been accurate, and there's been things that have been accurate. I don't know where his information would be coming from because, as any of you who are listening to Counterattack on SiriusXM FC just a little while ago, team's still in Mexico. Frank did that interview with Tony Meola and Brian Dunseth from Mexico, so you haven't seen the team doctors yet. So I don't think there's any kind of an idea of how long this is going to take. So I don't even know what the injury is. To be perfectly honest, I don't know what the injury is because you saw the stumble, then you saw the recovery and the lunge. I don't know if it happened on the stumble. I don't know if it happened on the lunge. I don't know where it was. He got up and he walked off, which is a good sign. Doesn't mean he's out of the woods, but it's a good sign. You take that as a positive, and that's what happens. I mean, you can't go into a season without playing preseason games. You have to play games to get ready. If you don't, then you're going to struggle early in the season, and you're stuck. So you got to play, and anytime you step on a field, whether it's training or a match, anything can happen. And this is why you have to make the best of the situation. And I thought Atlanta did in that regard. First with George Campbell coming on. George Campbell's been my MVP of the preseason. If there was such an award, Campbell would get it because he has raised his stock the most of anyone in preseason. And to the point that if Robinson is not available in Motagua, Campbell might get the nod. And we'll see how that would work. I thought they looked pretty good with that trio, Meza, Escobar, and Campbell together. Now, then you went to a line of four later, and it was around that time where you were trying to find that reserve of energy, and Walks came in as the center back in the line of four, and Campbell moved over to the left. He was eventually substituted, and Mo Adams came on. Campbell has never played left back that I've known of. I'm sure in a match at some point he's been transitioned over there, but he didn't do it for Atlanta United 2 last year at any point that I remember. And as an academy player coming up, he played in the midfield, but I don't think he played as an outside back. So these things happen in matches, and especially when you're a teenager right now, you want to get on the field, you better show you can play anywhere on the field that you need to get there. He's not a great left back, but he didn't hurt you at left back either. I thought actually his positioning was better than Mo Adams at left back. Mo might be a scrappier, quicker player, but Mo got caught out at one point And I think that's what's difficult when you're moving a midfielder into that spot, because he's so used to stepping up into the play. He got caught too high. So, Campbell, good performance from him. A lot of very important minutes, and you might need him to build on that next week or the week after. Good sign there. Good result coming out of it for Campbell to get those minutes. What else stood out on the positive for me? I really like Fernando Mesa's game. I like the steadiness he brings to the table. I think he is going to be the leader of this back line, and it's a different kind of leadership than you might have had before with Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez in 2019. Mesa is much more of the Michael Parkhurst mold, a little quieter, lead by example kind of center back. Just like his work on the ball, and at times last night where there was a mistake and he had a couple of giveaways, he recovered and took care of it. Those things I like to see. What else, if you can read your handwriting, what other questions, what things emerged for you last night?
All right, so let me go back to the good here quickly. I think that with Campbell, I think in the 45th to 50th minute, you saw both the bad and the good, and how he has a very short memory when it comes to something. There was a turnover, I want to say, in the 45th or 46th. He had to double back and help out to defend, but then in the 50th, there was the opportunity that Leonis Negros had, and then Campbell got there first and made the big clearance with a very aggressive thought pattern by him and clearing the ball out to the far side. So you had that short-term memory that Campbell had there, and then there was another chance, I think, that he had to defend in the 66th that stuck out with me, and also mentioning what happened with walks. I think Jeff Lorenowitz, is still trying to get his sea legs about him. He had the unforced error in the 58th that created a chance for Leonis Negros, and he eventually was subbed off for Remedi back in the 71st. And then, obviously, looking at Joseph and Petey, you had a couple of near misses. There was the set piece that was a near miss in the 83rd. You had a near miss with an entry pass by Petey 2 minutes before that. And then you had another Joseph chance back in the 72nd, Petey and Joseph hooking up in the 68th. So I think that with time, those near misses are going to be connections as well. So those were some of the highlights in my illegible handwriting.
Yeah, Joseph had some opportunities late that it looked like just a timing issue. There were balls in that I thought he would get to. Normally he does. I think this season he will, just not completely there yet. And that's what preseason's all about. Trying to think of what else stood out to me on the positive. And, I think more than anything, just the work that was put in. And Gwen agrees with this, as you can tell. She likes hard work. See? It's where you have a team that goes and plays at altitude and has to work for the result that they got. It's a scoreless draw, but you're preparing for next week. You're preparing to go to a situation that, the altitude's not the same, but Motagua is a difficult place to play. San Pedro Sula at the Estadio Olímpico. This is the place, if you go back and look at some of the comments coming out of 2013 World Cup qualifiers, this time of year, the U.S. went down there and lost in the first game of the Hex. And one thing they talked about was the length of the grass and just how difficult it was to play on that pitch. Now, that game was also in the middle of the afternoon. The Atlanta-Motagua match will not be, which is a good thing for Atlanta United. We won't have to deal with the heat that they really haven't had to deal with so far in preseason. But it's not going to be easy. And if you take this result from last night and you offer that to Frank de Boer next week, done. Sign him up. He's taking it, and you're coming back to Kennesaw in control of the series. Because that's what this is about. I think at times there's just an expectation of every match has to be a win. Games on the road and games on the road internationally, even if it's a friendly, in CONCACAF, they're difficult. There's different challenges that come into play. It was something that Frank talked about with Miola and Dunseth just a little bit ago. And go listen to that on the SiriusXM app if you have it, if you're a subscriber. He just talked about how, going to Costa Rica, going to Honduras in this case, you're dealing with just different things. Travel's more difficult. Training pitch could be more difficult. And he talked about the field at Herediano and how difficult that was to deal with. This is going to be a very difficult field to deal with. You have things that can take you out of your comfort zone. So you have to manage it. And getting that experience last night, field wasn't perfect. Little choppy at times. You saw some issues with footing at times. You get some experience in a different situation. You didn't give up a goal, and that's something that I've hung my hat on with this preseason so far. You look at the 3 games that have been available to watch, these last 3, you conceded 1 goal with your top defenders on the field, and that was against Elfsborg. The 2 you conceded against Birmingham were with what was the back line, and it shifted from 3 center backs to 4 at one point in the second half too, and I can't remember if it did that before the second goal or not, but I know to start the second half it was Patrick Nielsen, it was George Campbell in the middle, and it was Lawrence White playing together. That was the back line that conceded the penalty. I think they might have shifted to the 4 in the back before the offside goal, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't Meza, it wasn't Robinson, it wasn't Escobar on the field at that time. The only goal that they've conceded is the goal against Elfsborg. I don't know the lineup when a goal was conceded against Red Bulls in the first game, and reportedly that was due to pressing and a turnover. So, okay, we'll say that's the first group 2, so that's 2. That's where you want to start from. And, John, as many sports as you've covered, preseason, what comes first, offense or defense?
Defense, traditionally.
Because you get to work on it.
Yep.
And that's the thing. Like, defense, you work on, you can drill, you can teach. The attack doesn't come together as quickly because you have to have creativity. You have to build chemistry. It takes more time. So this defense, being where it is right now, is a great place to be ahead of this first leg against Motagua, where you want to pitch a shutout. You want to keep that 0 on the board as long as you can, because you have faith that in the home leg, you're going to be able to find whatever goals you need to take care of business. It's step by step, and you want to get better step by step. Last night, for me, the step was fitness. The step was reps. The team finished the match better than they started. And it's not a direct improvement because it's not a straight line from the Birmingham game because they were both very different situations. But you've been able to have a pretty well-rounded preseason and have a lot of different experiences that should serve you well in San Pedro Sula.
With defense, it is getting from one place to another. And I have no earthly idea who decided that this was a good time to call. Maybe it was Gwen. But no, with defense, it is one act to the completion and conclusion of what you're doing. It's if you're a defensive lineman, ball is snapped, get to the quarterback. Boom, boom. There is creativity in how you get to that point, but in offense, it is, okay, what do we look like? How are we getting there? What are the options of each of these individual players, where in defense you're dealing with groups. You're not necessarily dealing with individual ideas and things. And so for the defense to get there first, not a surprise. And last time I checked in most sports, if your defense keeps the other guy from doing something, the worst thing that can happen is a tie.
Yeah, of course, but there is a factor of this with Atlanta United being based on being an attacking team. And being a team that scores goals. But you have to understand the reality of the situation about defense is going to be stronger first. It just is. That's how things go, because defense is much more of something that is taught, that is coached, as opposed to something that requires things that are hard to teach. A creative player like a Barco or a Pitti who do things through instinct, through intuition, that they need to play. They need to get into that feeling. Feeling is a big thing with the offense.
Yeah.
Work and being organized and listening to what's being taught. That's what makes you better defensively.
Yeah. Feeling versus doing, I think, is probably the best way that I could think about it.
Oh, no, doing's not the word, but it's just something that can be taught. And that's, you can do a lot of work on defense early on. And I think this team has, and I think they're in a good spot with it. Something that Frank said that was interesting on counterattack was he wants this team. He went a step further than on some things that he said. He's been really clear in saying that he wants this team to be able to recognize situations in matches and adjust accordingly. And he's talked about how he wants the team, especially the front group, to know when to press, when to drop, when to consolidate, when to build blocks and defend deeper, but when the time is right to step up and press. He went a step further to say that he thinks that this team has a lot of the characteristics of a strong counterattacking team with Barco, with Pitti, with Joseph. And he wants them to be able to recognize not just to drop, because it's not just about dropping and defending and building a block and parking a bus. It's about dropping, defending to draw the opponent in and then counter on them. And he said when a team gets to that point where they're able to control possession, control the ball, control the game, but they lose it because everybody does at some point, they're able to drop and draw the opponent in to hit them on the counter. That's total football. That's the type of stuff that he's looking for. He's not wanting to have a team that is one-dimensional, that is a pressing team, that is a possession team. He wants a team that can do both, because that's what the best teams do. Because even the best teams who have control of games because they have the best players or they have more money or whatever reason, they run up against somebody. If it's in the Champions League format, if it's in a Copa Libertadores match, if you've got injuries, if you're on the road in a tough spot, whatever, you're going to run up against somebody that can outplay you or even just outplay you in certain parts of the field. And you've got to be able to do other things to get the result that you want. And Atlanta United, that's something that Frank DeBoer is building this team to. He doesn't want them to just be a vertical team. He doesn't want them to just be a pressing team. He wants them to be a total team. And that's an ambitious goal. And that shows you, I think, a little bit of just the size of thought here about what you're doing with this group. But it's also something that doesn't happen overnight. So it takes a little bit of time. That was a really interesting next step for me in the things that he said was, he's fine if they drop occasionally and sucker a team in and then hit them on the counter. He's good with that. And I think people leave that out of the Dutch style or total football a lot of times. But if you go back and look at some of the best Dutch goals and go back and look at some of the goals that Frank himself helped create for somebody like Dennis Bergkamp, it's sitting, drawing a team in, hitting the ball over the top, counter, goal, boom. And you've got players who can do that because we've seen it.
I'm trying to remember the full context of the quote. It was like he said that the DNA, part of the DNA was to attack and pressure opponents, but you also have to recognize when to play compact and reserved. There's times to let the opponent have the ball and then counterattack, and there are times to press and times to sit back. You do that, you're a complete team. Did I remember that right?
Something like that, yeah.
And that you have to be aware, you have to be sharp, and you have to know where to punish your opponent.
Yeah, and that's down to scouting, and that's down to studying an opponent and knowing what their weaknesses are, also what their strengths are, what you have to defend against, but where you can hurt them. And that's what, in my opinion, top teams are able to do, because there's not a team in the world that can always dominate everybody they play. Liverpool has to know what the other team is going to do. Manchester City, Pep Guardiola, for as good as City and Bayern and Barcelona have been at times under Pep Guardiola, the amount of opposition research and tactical preparation is immense, because he wants a team that is well-rounded and can do everything needed to beat any team they come up against in any situation. We're going to take a quick break. John has other duties to take care of. SiriusXM Canada, right?
Yeah, SiriusXM Canada talks with a friend of the network, Ryan Payton. He has his weekly daily talk show from 6 to 7. I usually drop in during this time slot one day during the week, and because of the game of the week last night, it had to be tonight. So I'm just ducking out from 6:30. I'll be back at 7 o'clock to roll through the Twitters on an overreaction, on-par reaction, underreaction Wednesday.
So John's going to tag out, and Jarrett Smith is going to tag in, and he'll be with us right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire, and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
And we're back just in the nick of time. Jarrett Smith answers his Skype.
Yo.
Yes, just as the rejoin was playing out. What's up?
Just leaving it to the last second. I kind of treat all of this like a San Jose game. It's just, none of it's going to make sense. You're going to be confused by all of it. You're probably going to be sleep deprived. I know I am. And you're going to wonder what happened, but you're going to have a good time, hopefully, unless you're San Jose.
I don't know. Some people had a good time last night, I think. Some people didn't. I
advised everyone to crack open a Four Loko for the shootout.
Okay, the people had a bad time. I know who to blame.
Oh, no, we're going old Four Loko, like 90s, non-FDA approved Four Loko.
Well, if they had done the 35-yard shootout, yes. And I did put in my vote for that. Unfortunately, it was overruled.
As you should, always.
Yeah, I'm always going to lobby for it.
We should always do that. My only benefit of last night was watching that Joseph changed his hop just a little bit.
He skipped. It was a skip.
He skipped. It was a skip, and it's just another thing to think about with Joseph. Now he's not just going to jump 12 feet in the air. He might just skip. He might not skip or jump at all. It's just another thing to think about. But I expect like 5 more think pieces on this run up because it's just so weird and it's just so unique and beautiful.
Yeah, people get really worked up about it, and I like that he just does not care at all what people think. That's why you gotta love Joseph. What else stood out to you about last night, good or bad?
So we're gonna stick with the penalties because, my God, can I give credit to like the kids from Leonos Negros for the penalties they took, because a lot of them were damn good. I mean, those were some stone cold, like into the side netting, into the roof of the net, just ripping the seams off the ball. Those were just good. I wasn't even mad. Like, there's a couple of them where Guzan guessed right. He just never had a shot because they put their laces through it and put it in the side netting. Nothing he could do. So shout out to them.
Yeah, the ones in the side netting, there was, I think, one of the first ones that Brad guessed right, couldn't get to. That
was the very
final
first one.
Two, I think, that were in the upper 90 or at least close to it, up high. That takes guts. Anytime you're going aerial on a penalty, that takes some guts.
Yeah, it does. As far as things that were so I guess as far as the things that were good or bad, I was looking for Mulroney because I guess we're just gonna have to start a club, but didn't get Mulroney. I like that we saw them get
one quick
runouts.
update on that before we keep going. Frank mentioned it on Counterattack, and Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic tweeted it about Josetu not being available for the Motagua series. I got a clarification that it's not definite yet, because I mean it's a process that the team it's outside of the team making the decision on when this P1 visa gets done. It's expected that Mulroney will be okay for that first game against Motagua, along with anybody else. Castro probably not, obviously, since they just got that one done. But Josetu's the one that they don't know. The others they feel good about.
Yeah, I wanted to see more of Mulroney because I've liked what we've seen from him. This was the game in Birmingham. Wasn't his best, but he just has that little chaos element that I guess it's. I mean, is it bad to hearken to Tito a little bit of just that guy's going to play with raw speed, probably more of a bulldog defensive mentality, but he's just going to run up and down and harass everybody on that side of the field. It's a fun option to have, either starting the game or late in games. I wanted to see more of him, but that's neither here nor there. What I liked about all the subs and the lack of subs, I guess for me, if you wanted to find a bright point in all this was, I got to see those guys get a run out and get some tired legs and some tired minds. You're going to run into that, especially in Champions League, where it's going to be chippy. Game last night was chippy. Guys are getting beat up. How do you adjust? How do you handle it mentally? How do you handle it physically? And I liked seeing them get put in that situation where there's some leverage to it. It's not a ton because it is a friendly. Sure, you get a trophy that looks like it was done by, a Nickelodeon Big Help committee, but it was still. I like the trophy personally.
I did too.
It was outlandish, but I liked it. But that being said, I like that they kind of got put in that situation where, hey, you're going to be tired, and I still need you to make good decisions because you're going to be tired out there against guys with fresh legs. Be smart.
Yeah, and it's something that you don't always get in these kinds of preseason matches. You don't always get those tough situations, and they did. Brock Joyner did not agree with that. He said, what did I just watch? This team looks like Orlando City playing against a Mexican second division side. Then we look worse against their second team. I'm going to bed and pretend this never happened.
I think they're just out of legs. I think it's one of those things that can be beneficial to both teams, though, because you've got your starters out there who are going to be on tired legs. And then, you've got the second team coming in and probably some academy or some trialists for the other side come into the game. They've got a chance to show out against first team players from a big team in MLS. Everybody can benefit from a game like that. If you're Atlanta, I think you benefit from being kind of punched in the face a bit. You probably should have given up a couple goals. I don't think it's unfair to say. I mean, look at a couple of chances where, the cross that goes in off the guy's hip, not dissimilar really to the one Dempsey scored against Portugal in the World Cup, where he just kind of hip thrusted the ball into the net like Elvis. But you had a couple situations where, you could have given up a goal or two, but I thought you kind of tied everything down late in the game in a way you should have, and it was good to see. The result wasn't ideal. I think you wanted to see more offensively, but this is a similar situation to XFL, AAF. Someone brought this up when you were gambling those things, is that you're betting the under because this applies to soccer as well. The defense is going to sync up before the offense does, and we saw that, I think, with PT and Joseph just not quite syncing up. Had a couple instances in that game last night where PT delivers a free kick late that's just beyond Joseph's head, or he hits the ball at the outside of the foot that just doesn't come off right. They're just a step or two off. You expect that to get synced up, but the defense you can count on being more synced up. And then we have my large adult son, George Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, he's the MVP of the preseason for me. He absolutely has changed the trajectory of what he could be this season. I did not count on him as being a player that I expected to have any kind of an impact at the MLS level. He still might not, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable if he was called upon now. I think what he's done in preseason as a whole has been really, really impressive. The thing I would say to Brock about this team looks like Orlando City playing against a Mexican second division side is that's not true at all, because you know what Atlanta United is trying to do. You watch them play, you see what their game plan is, you see what their way of playing is. You don't see that with an Orlando City. You don't see that with a lot of teams. And the difference is where you're at in the season. Are you going to be in sync now? No, not where you want to be next month, and then you want to be even better the following month, and you want to be even better the following month. That's the process, but the idea and the system, you know what they want to do. You know how they want to play, and there's a lot of teams that don't have that. It's sometimes for them, preseason is literally just about playing minutes and rolling the ball out and seeing what happens. You're not actually building anything tactically. You're not building anything structurally. Even where it's not coming off right now for Atlanta United, I think you can see the way they want to play, the way they want to build. It's got to be faster. It's got to be quicker. It's got to be more instinct than thinking about what to do. But that comes with time.
I think we saw some of that in the Birmingham game where they played more through the middle, the combination play, where it just looked like, I don't want to call it schoolyard because I don't want it to have a negative connotation that it's not professional, but where it looked more free-flowing.
No, sometimes the game turns that way. I mean, that's the other thing. Is like you go into a game, but I don't want people
to associate it in a negative way, where it's
sure.
Oh, that's a schoolyard style.
No, the end of the first half against Birmingham, you started to pick up the pace because they couldn't play comfortably at that pace, and it did get sloppier. But that was, at least in my opinion, it appeared to be intentional to break Birmingham down, and they eventually got the goal to show for it.
They did. As far as other things, look, Brooks Lennon's getting those opportunities out on the right side that guys get in this system, because you have a guy like Joseph Martinez who, I said last night, he demanded a box and one, basically. There were points, if you go back and watch that game, freeze a few frames where Lennon's on the outside with the ball. There are 4 defenders around Joseph and somebody also kind of keeping a weather eye on him that's trying to prevent that cutback cross that Lennon hit a couple times. He just didn't hit cleanly enough, didn't hit quickly enough to get it to a guy like PT who would have been waiting just outside the 18. But what I want to see more of from Lennon, and we saw it a couple times, is when you get in those situations 1v1, something he has in his bag of tricks is that ability to take guys 1v1. And I want to see that. I want to see him, throw a little feint and try and drive to the line and force that box and one or whatever the hell defense you see around Joseph. Force that defense to break shape and make somebody, basically crash down to cut off the run. So he did it once or twice in that game, but I hope we see more of it from him. When everything is built up around Joseph for that early cross, put a foot on the ball, then give a little feint, drive at somebody.
But that's part
take
of what
1v1.
They did in Birmingham. And if you go back and look at when that game sped up,
I'd like to
Lennon
see more
coming
of it from
inside
him.
was a big part of it. Sorry.
Yeah, and no, I agree, and that's I want to see him keep doing that because I think he's capable of skinning people. There's going to be a lot of, I mean, let's face it, MLS as good as it's getting, there's plenty of bodies he can skin this year.
Yeah, 100%. I think what Birmingham showed me was even in the 3-4-3, it can change easily, and that was one late in that final 10-15 minutes. Brooks Lennon started coming inside more, occupying one of the defenders that was focused on Joseph. That created space outside for Franco Escobar. It created some overloads. You were able to shift the back line over to make sure you were covered. Those things are very important to get that experience. You didn't see as much of that last night. I think, one, the fitness was an issue, and it showed, especially in that middle part of the second half. And two, it wasn't as much of the game plan, because the game plan was we're replicating what we're going to see next week. And next week, we come out of there scoreless, good, cool. We're not going to risk anything to give up a bunch of goals on the road and let things get weird. We're going to be more compact. And Brooks and Walks on the outside, they're not going to try to get in behind as much. They're going to be a little more defense first out in those positions to make sure you've got everything locked down. And with three superstars up front, you're going to take your chances on the three of them figuring it out when you've got to lock things down behind.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I kind of go back to, because you talk about it being three guys up top who can figure things out. I go back to I believe it was Doyle over at MLS who said last year during a game where I think it was one of the Orlando games where Atlanta won. There were moments in that game where Orlando just looked like they were on par. Atlanta wasn't clearly the better team, but Joseph was the difference. Like when you have a wild Joseph Martinez that you can just let off the chain at any given moment, it can make up for a game where we're going to say, hey, we're going to play a little more defensive, let our three guys up front create. And, oh, by the way, that guy, the little one, he is probably he's the most prolific goal scorer this league's ever seen for the amount of time he's been here. It can mean a lot, and it can be, I think it has to be in the back of your head if you're a team who's playing at home like Motagua, who's, okay, we're going to try and get forward here because we need to build a lead before we go up to Marietta. But at the same time, we can't pour everything forward so much that they have three playmakers who can, if it's 3-on-4, let's be honest, you like those odds if you're Atlanta. If it's 3-on-4, somebody's splitting a line. Somebody's making somebody else miss.
100%. And you'll take that. It's not even making up for it. I think sometimes the smart play on the road is going to be to be more compact defensively. Now, where I think they struggled at times last night, and I think this is going to be an ongoing theme early on, is in transition, the central midfield. If they stay in this shape, which has shown a lot of positives, there's also some negatives associated with it. You have two central midfielders. They've got to be guys who can support those three attackers when needed, and they've got to be guys that can support the three center backs when needed. Last night, I thought they were definitely more slanted to supporting the three center backs, but at times they kind of got caught flat. Heinemann and Larinowitz at times got caught flat, kind of caught in the same space. It didn't work as well with the two of them as I would have liked. Now, we know Mateo Sosatu will factor into this conversation very soon. To what degree? I don't know. And I don't know what the pairing is going to be, but I think his skills, his talent will help support that attack for sure. I think that's an easy thing to count on based off what we've seen. But can you find the counterbalance to support the back line? The wing backs, have to get up and down. That's their job. And I think last night they did a pretty good job of it. Lennon got better as the night went on. On the left side, Walks is different on the left than Lennon would be because he's not a natural left-sided player. So he's not going to get forward quite as much. But he, again, got forward and had a couple of good passes into the final third that I liked, that I thought was going to create a little bit more than it did. But it's the central midfield pairing And if Atlanta can find the right pairing that gives the team the right balance, I think they have the ability to be better than anybody else in this league. But they've got to find that, and balance, to me, is the key word for the season.
And I think it's going to vary game by game.
I agree.
I think we've discussed this before, that there is no – this isn't like 2017 or 2018 where you just penciled in the same 11 every week if everyone was healthy. Every game's going to be different, and you're going to go on form. You're going to go on what you need in that game. Do we need a more defensive look? Do we need a more offensive look? How do we need to shift the balance here? Emerson Hyndman, you're going to have to produce, and you're going to have to be the right guy for that game. Hosetu, you're going to have to be the right guy, and you're going to have to be in form for that game. Same with Lorenowitz. Same with Eric Bermetti. I mean, you're going to have to be the right guy. You're going to need to fit what we need to do that day, and you're going to have to be in form and show me you can continue to produce. And that's going to change every game. Guys are going to have to fight for time on the field, and if you're not doing it, hey, tough luck. The bench seats look super cozy at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for what it's worth. Kind of have that racing car seat view. And they're pretty durable, as if we've learned from Joseph's kicks and PT's as well. So they'll hold up to a little bit of abuse. So, if you're not producing, you may not see the field for 90 minutes. And again, it's just like you said, it's just going to kind of depend on really what you need in those moments. One wild card that I did like that kind of tickled me, and this is another thing that's going to take that communication you talked about of somebody dropping back, whether that is the left wing back staying back, whether it's the defensive midfielder dropping back, is those Franco Escobar runs from center back where he just kind of gets a wild hair and comes flying in. It does a thing that Franco does where he gets outside, flies down, and cuts inside and produces an absurdly dangerous element. But again, everybody has to be on the same page communication-wise so you don't leave a huge hole there. But that's just – if you're going to run a three-man back line or if you're going to run him at right back, it's just an element that's absolutely terrifying to have to deal with, because – you're not going to run into a Franco Escobar every week if you're another team.
Now, he's a unique player in this league, in my opinion. A guy who can hurt you as a right back going forward, a guy who can hurt you as a right wing back going forward, and a guy who's completely confident enough to make those runs as a center back with three center backs and go forward, knowing that he's got guys who can cover for him and knowing that those kinds of runs are encouraged. And not every team does that. A lot of teams don't allow their center backs to do those sorts of things. It's a great weapon for Atlanta United when Escobar can do that. Let's get into another tweet on Overreaction Wednesday, although this one was hashtagged On Par Reaction Wednesday. Drew Gano, Meza will be amazing this year. Campbell will get lots of MLS minutes. We need help in the midfield, just not enough in transition.
I really like Meza.
I do too.
Just cerebral. I mean, and I know, again, that's another one that I feel like has kind of that connotation. It's kind of like we use it the same way we use deceptively athletic, where we kind of mean it as a slight in some aspects when we use it to describe some players, but he's still athletic. He's just, I think he reads the game really well. He hit a couple diagonal balls I didn't expect him to hit last night that were impressive. If he starts hitting those, that's, because that's one thing that you lost with LGP. You also lost a little bit of the psychotic edge that comes with your defense, but
which can be good or bad.
It can be good or bad, and I'm here to tell y'all, if y'all haven't watched the Twos game, I promise you, George Campbell's got a little bit of that in him.
I'll tell you who's been bringing that so far in preseason is Ezequiel Barco. Barco's been ready to drop people quickly.
Barco is squared up on every human being possible.
Yeah. I don't remember that being a consistent thing with Ezequiel Barco, but, man.
He's just grabbing – I think he might just be grabbing that role by the reins of it's weird to think about Barco being a kid but being kind of a veteran member on this team right now, and he may be just grabbing that by the reins and filling that emotional void a bit.
I don't know if it's that or that he's just getting sick of getting kicked around so much, and he's kind of going through that retaliation phase that Messi went through for a minute, where he'd react badly to getting kicked. Maradona went through it quite a bit. It's just you get kicked so much, you have to react.
Yeah. But I promise y'all, Campbell has a little bit of fire in him too. And Lawrence White absolutely has never met a 2-footed tackle he does not embrace with both arms. Even though we didn't see him last night, as that game got chippy, it might be for the best that Lawrence White didn't come in that game.
Yeah, this is true. This is very true.
Lawrence White has that Booker T missile drop kick just in his back pocket whenever he needs it.
Hopefully we don't see that one. Something that Stephen Glass said when we talked to him last week that stands out to me, it kind of plays off of something you said just a minute ago. You've got competition for spots this year unlike I think you've ever had, because maybe it's not 30 guys
really
on the roster right now.
There's one or two. There's maybe one or two. Well, 3 names. I get 2 or 3 names that you pin into that lineup every time out.
Maybe,
and that's Joseph, Guzan, and if he's healthy, probably Miles.
Yeah, I mean those are the 3 names that came to mind for me.
Miles. He's probably the best defender in MLS this year. Go ahead, do it.
No, those are the 3 that came to mind for me. But those are 3 guys that you're not worried about with attitude and putting the work in. And that's something that Stephen Glass talked about with the 2s, and it's not a reflection of all of the first team, but you can't expect to be handed anything here. And that's something that is being built all the way through, all the way down to the academy, all the way up to the first team. You've got to put in the work on the training ground. You've got to put in the performances that are expected with an Atlanta United kit on in matches. And if you don't, somebody else is going to get those minutes. Flat out. That's the difference, I think, here now than it was in 2017, which you couldn't expect it to be day one. You're trying to figure everything out on the fly. But you're also going a step further now, year 4, in creating that culture of this is what's expected here. Exemplary work ethic, exemplary performance, and if it's not there, then we're going to go find somebody else. Thank you, and we're going to find somebody else. That's how it's going to be. And that can be difficult for some. That can be difficult looking at it from the outside because you don't see everything on the training ground. You don't see if people are reacting well to instruction. You don't see if they're gathering the instructions. You don't see if they're understanding the instructions. You don't get to see everything. But it's going to be big-time competition for spots. And now you've got guys that you might look at like a Mulraney, like an Anton Walks, that you're like, oh, they're just brought here for depth, and they might play here and there, come off the bench, whatever. If they're putting in the work and they're performing, they're going to play. If George Campbell's performing, he's going to play.
Dion Pereira.
Yeah.
Pereira last year just grabbed moments. He grabbed minutes.
And that's the thing. He didn't grab them consistently enough. And that's why, it wasn't something that he was guaranteed minutes late, even in spots where people thought, like, oh, he's going to get a game here, he's going to come off the bench here. No, it wasn't consistent enough, and we didn't see the training side of it, but others passed him. And it's going to be cutthroat at times because guys want to play. They want to better their situation, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's moving somewhere else. Whatever it is, professional pride kicks in, and you want guys that are going to rise to that occasion and are going to push one another. And I think you've got a group that will do that. And that goes back to something else that Frank said on Counterattack today, and it's something that a lot of coaches say, and this is just universal in sports. When you have a group that's been together for a minute and you make some changes to it, that can liven things up, and that can create a new level of pressure within the group, and that can create some new dynamics that push the team forward, even when you think, like, man, you don't want to lose some of the players you did. Sometimes the newness of it can create new things that you didn't have before.
And just kind of to veer off onto a dirt road for a minute, this is something that I'm really looking forward to this year with the 2s. And you mentioned talking to Glassy. A lot of the guys who were on loan who really grabbed minutes last year, Benitez, Decas, kind of came on as the year went on. They ain't here. Somebody's got to grab those minutes. They're voids to grab. Who wants to grab them? I want to see what happens with them. Do we see guys like a Will Riley, who's down there training with the first team, a Wolf, who's down there training with the first team out of the academy? Do we see more of these guys just jump up and grab these opportunities and just demand them? I was going to say Jordan Matthews, but I think he's out of college.
No, not yet.
Oh, he's not yet?
Nope. He's with the academy. He'll probably get some games with the twos early on.
I hope he does. I liked what I saw from him last year. Even when it wasn't perfect, he wasn't afraid. I liked it. But, let's see this fight. Let's see who grabs these minutes and who just kind of takes him by the scruff of the neck. And, we might not expect to see the guys starting where they start as the season goes on. We might see guys we expect to be starting, sitting on the bench. Hell, some of them might not make the game day 18, might be dressed up in that really nice-looking suit. You just don't know right now. That's okay.
I think the expectation was laid down last year that you're not picking the lineup, you're not picking the 18 based off salaries. You're not picking it based off transfer marked values. Otherwise, Pity Martinez would have never missed a game last year, and Tito Villalba would have played every game. And that wasn't the case. So guys are going to have to perform, period, or they're not going to play. That competition is good. And that's why when you go through the depth chart and you see that there's options in different spots and there's options in terms of different shapes and lineups and accommodating different groups, it's going to be the best group for that match. And some weeks that'll change. Some runs you'll get the same group that plays together for a little while. But you're going to have to earn it.
Yeah, you are. We'll see how they earn it. But, yeah, as far as I was concerned, results stunk last night. You wanted to win it. You wanted to win it. It'd be cool to have that fun little trophy. But
no, you got the trophy. You got the trophy. They gave the trophy to Atlanta as a thank you for coming and celebrating the Estadio Jalisco.
Please tell Chris to make sure we have that at the first home game. I need to see it. I need a picture with it.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was a fun experience with everything with it,
yes.
And it's very cool to get that honor in a lot of ways because Leones Negros is trying to build their brand. They don't want to be just a second division team that nobody knows about. They want to get back into the first division. They want to be known. They want to build that brand. You play big teams to do that, and they consider Atlanta
have them
United
come up here. We'll play a home and home with them.
Be down with that.
Treat it like college football. Have them come up here, play home and home. But yeah, result wasn't perfect for what you wanted. I get that. Stuff you can absolutely improve on, but I'd rather them be doing this and getting challenged and having frustrating games like this than going and playing as I believe it was the former president of Ohio State once said, the little sisters of the poor.
Oh, man, that's true. That doesn't help you. All right, you going to stick around with us, or do you need to bail and when John tags back in?
I'm going to bail.
Okay.
I've got to bail.
Well, we got 30 minutes out of you. That's pretty good.
And a solid connection.
Yes,
and
no cats were tortured during this recording.
No, not this time. Next time.
Yeah.
I'll schedule it.
Something like that. Are you going to come out and see everybody on Saturday at Wild Heaven West End?
Man, there's a good chance of that.
It needs to happen because there's a microphone with your name on it, and there will be lots of people talking into said microphones. Myself and John, obviously. Kelly Francis will be hanging out with us. There will be a round table with members of each of the official supporters groups for Atlanta United, Resurgence, Footy Mob, Faction, Terminus Legion. All will be discussing what they do and also kind of expectations for the upcoming season. It's going to be a fun time. Wild Heavens actually canned their first beers ever as part of this. The El Jefe. It is a Honduran-influenced Hefeweizen. That is going to be in a can, and you'll be able to get those in a very limited quantity on Saturday. It's going to be very cool.
I'll have to do that and come by and harass my kind of rivals by proxy, really, considering Doug is associated with Pebblebrook. Kelly went to Campbell, and I went to Osborne. So I have to go just put on the inferiority complex that I wear so well when it comes to representing that high school that just was so bad at everything that I was ever associated with.
Fair enough. That'll work, too. But hopefully we'll see you on Saturday, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll get John back on the line. We'll get into the Twitter timeline on an Overreaction Wednesday right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Soccer Down here, hour number 2. No shock. John's phone is drunk or something, and for some reason he has 2 calls going at one time. Only John's phone can do these things. So we're going to give his phone a minute to chill out, and we're going to get back into the timeline quickly with Nick Braley. Nick Braley said, no overreaction from me. Pitti looked confident. Meza showed composure yet again. Campbell was very impressive, despite unexpectedly being called upon. With Josetu, Castillo, and hopefully Miles and Bello back, as well as Joseph finding his form, we should be fine. I agree with Pitti. I think he was playing through some fitness issues, and I thought at the end he looked good. He kind of found his spot. He dropped deep, which I actually like to see. He kind of dropped into a deeper lying playmaker role because that's where the space was for him. And he dialed up some possibly good chances, and it just not quite on the same page with Joseph, narrowly missed. Campbell, Meza, we've talked about a good bit. Now, the one thing I'll say about the last sentence from Nick, that's a lot of things that need to happen. I think they're all realistic things, but those are all things that do need to happen for this team to be firing on all cylinders. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing at this stage. I think they're all reasonable things. Joseph finding his form, reasonable. Bello and Miles back, yes, it's going to happen at some point. Castillo as well. And Josetu just getting into the team, just getting into the mix. So I'm with Nick on it, but yeah, those are a lot of things that need to get better, and it's okay to say that. I think some of the either reaction to the reaction about, well, you can't criticize what happened last night. No, that's not true at all. Do I think some of the reaction to last night has been incredibly overblown? Yeah, I do. I think some of it is unfair expectation, but look, Atlanta United is going to improve as the year goes on. They need to, and that's okay. That's how these things go. It's not that difficult to grasp that You're just not going to be at top form on February 12th, and you shouldn't be. All right, John's phone, I think, is playing nice.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like it had two versions of Skype app opened, and I had to find a way to kill them both and then reset everything.
Only John's phone, y'all.
True.
It only happens to John's phone. These things don't happen to anybody else's phone.
Once again, we're talking about me and technology.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
No.
Agreed.
You don't at all. All right, so on the Twitter timeline, we have talked about things up until Nick Braley left us off.
Got it.
I'll hit United Chop Rise, and then you take it over after this. He said, and this was in a response to Drew, who we talked about earlier. He talked about Meza and Pitti and their performances, add in Josetu, and interested to see if Castro comes to Atlanta and how he fits in. Well, that was announced this afternoon. He is on loan from Estudiantes de La Plata of the Argentine Superliga. It's a loan through the end of June, club option to extend it until the end of the calendar year. He is in an international slot. He'll be added officially to the roster. When you get the P1 visa, you get the international transfer certificate. A couple things on this, because it's come up, and it's come up based off a multitude of things. It's not just an Atlanta United thing. There's a lot of teams in the league dealing with the visa issues, because I think there have been more issues in this offseason than there have in previous off seasons. I'm assuming it is tied into immigration, and I'm assuming that it is tied into all of that controversy. I don't know for sure, but it does feel like it's taken longer to get these things processed than it ever has. Ask Chicharito about it. Now Atlanta United will be waiting on Josetu. Mulroney was away dealing with paperwork yesterday. Look, it's part of the process. And I don't know all the legalities of when they can train, when they can't train, when they can travel, when they can't travel. I don't know. Difference between a competitive match and a preseason match, I don't know that stuff. But the ITC part of it, that's FIFA paperwork. That happens not instantaneously, but that's immediately. That's incredibly quick. P1 visa, you're dealing with the government, and you're not on your own time. So hopefully for Castro, it happens soon. You get him in, you get to see where he fits. Carlos Bocanegra described him like this. Manuel's a versatile winger with valuable experience in both the Argentine and Uruguayan first divisions, and he'll add solid competition to our attack. His work rate and willingness to run both ways fits in with our dynamic style of play. We look forward to welcoming him to Atlanta and into our team. You look back at his career, and it's not a long career. He's 24 years old. He'll turn 25 in September. Started at Wanderers in Montevideo, Uruguay, and that's where he broke through and had his most success in 2018. 2018, he scored 11 goals in league play. Played a couple matches in the Copa Libertadores that year as well. 11 goals, 6 assists in 33 matches in 2018. That's what earned him a move to Argentina and Estudiantes. At Estudiantes, he has played in 27 matches. He has 3 goals. It's been a little bit more difficult at Estudiantes, which is typical. You're talking about a different level of league. The Argentine league is more competitive than the Uruguayan league. And that transition has been a little tricky. And as we've talked about in the last week or so, his spot at Estudiantes, it's getting squeezed because they've added players in other spots, and they've increased that competition. Javier Mascherano has joined this group. Mauro Diaz has joined this group. And right now, Castro isn't playing. They didn't sell him. They don't want to lose him just yet. But they've loaned him out to get a different experience and for Atlanta to take a look at him. And it's a 6-month loan. It might not work out and you go get somebody else in the summer. It might work out and you extend it to keep the loan going. You can always negotiate a purchase if you really like what you see. So feels like a no-brainer kind of move to bring him in, but be patient with him in terms of transition because we're not sure how quick he's going to be able to get in and start training. And I want to see what he can give you outside of just playing as a right winger. Because in the 3-4-3, there's not really as much of a spot for that. If they play 4-3-3, obviously there would be. But could he give you wing-back kind of performance? Is he going to be somebody who can push Lennon and Mulroney, who can play on the right side as well? Potentially. And you want to see if he can do enough defensively. And Carlos's quote, he kind of gives you a hint to that his willingness to run both ways. They see that he could maybe be a wing back in a 3-4-3, 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1, 3-4-1-2. Throw them all up in the air and pick a configuration you want.
All right, we got folks on the Twitters.
All right, let's get back to the Twitters.
Ricky Ricardo, his overreaction Wednesday take. I see why Brad had a mum reaction to the goalkeeper kits because they are atrocious.
They're bright. Brad doesn't like bright kits, so... Goalkeeper kits are often bright.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with bright. It's not Brad's style. So maybe he'll be able to petition for a darker colored kit. Brad looks good in the black kit. That's a Brad kind of kit. So when they wear the Kings kit, the white with the gold, maybe Brad can petition to get a black kit some point this season.
Jordan Myers, Atlanta Sports social media responded the way I figured to that game, but to say there weren't any positives is somewhat lazy. The fluidity of the players to interchange positions will be dangerous with more chemistry. Our players handled the aggressiveness of the game the way you would hope they do in CCL. And let me know when you want me to stop, so I will keep going.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think it's an overreaction to say that there was nothing positive to take out of it. I completely agree with that.
Without Miles Robinson, the backline did well defensively until everyone lost their legs, and it was somehow still scoreless at full time. Campbell looks to have a big season. This game looked to me like a team that doesn't have a ton of experience playing together, finally being challenged by an aggressive team in tough conditions. We needed this to see all the negative things because there were a lot of those too, but it's preseason. It wasn't round one of CCL. No doom and gloom here. Shrug shoulders emoji.
Yeah, this was much better than beating up on somebody in a comfortable situation a week ahead of CONCACAF Champions League. I think it was better than playing a behind-closed-doors match a week ahead of CONCACAF Champions League. This was a good test. And Leones Negros, I think, and people will argue this, but I think the Ascenso in Mexico compared to the Honduran League, I think the Ascenso is better. I think that the top teams in the Ascenso are better than the Honduran League. The Honduran League is very top-heavy. Motagua, Marathon, Olympia, strong clubs, pretty big clubs. The rest, not so much. So, in terms of competition, it's a similar kind of opponent. And that's what's going to help you. The altitude's a bonus. The conditions like that are a bonus, especially for building fitness, dealing with adversity. It was what it needed to be. I think the team will come out of it stronger.
Under the weather, in addressing us directly, says, at soccer down here, so I have concerns. I'm usually the eternal optimist, but the performance against UDG gave me pause. We looked bereft of ideas at times. Jeff looks off. Defense had too many turnovers. I'll keep going. Just let me know when you want me to stop.
Yeah, Jeff has looked off. And I think some of it you can chalk up to his age combined with the knee procedure he had. He started a little bit later in preseason. He doesn't look like he's at the same pace as everybody. And maybe that's just going to take some time. Can you weather the storm with him getting up to the same pace? That's going to be a question for Frank de Boer. Do you need to make a change to get results? Because now the games count. You can't afford to say it's just he's working through it. You got to get results, and if that's going to be a situation where turnovers, and we've seen some with Jeff, if that's going to be a situation that hurts you, you can't have it. So I'll be curious to see the lineup in a week's time in light of the two performances we've seen. What was the second part about the defense and turnovers? There were turnovers all over the field. I don't know if I would put the defense just on the turnover side. And also, I think I talked about this after the Elfsborg game. Birmingham played into it a little bit, but they didn't really press much. Birmingham just dropped off and let Atlanta run at them in the first half with the two starting groups together. You're going to play through that right now. You're going to at least try to more often than you might in a competitive match because that's your focus. That's your game plan for the day. That's what you're working on. You get into games that count, you might not force it as much, and hopefully you won't. So it's a little hard to say that that's going to be a long-term issue. I also think that the legs, the fitness, the altitude, and maybe even the pitch to a lesser extent factored in on some of the passes because it felt like it was a recurring thing to talk about passes coming up a little short. And it wasn't just defenders making them. It was pretty much everybody.
Continuing from under the weather, I did think P.T. Barco and Joseph were just inches from a couple of goals. Walks looked solid at center back and was fair at left wing back. Campbell looked lost when out on the left.
Well, he's not a left back. He should look lost out there. I don't think he's ever played there. So, but you have to learn these things. You're not necessarily going to learn it in a training session. It's good to see it. I don't know if Campbell or Adams looked better on the left side, honestly. Adams looked off position-wise as well. Campbell played it more like a very defensive left back because he's a center back primarily, and he's worried about positioning. Adams played it more like a midfielder playing left back, and he was up a little too high. There was one point where somebody just got in behind him and nearly created an opportunity. So, look, these are things you have to experiment with. And preseason games like this, not just behind closed doors, not just on a training pitch, it's where you learn. You know, Campbell might not be comfortable doing that in a match if you need to. If you're going to play against Motagua, and let's say Miles Robinson's not available, and you decide that George Campbell's the guy to play as a center back, well, you don't really have the option to, without a sub, go to a line of four and play Campbell as a left back. Unless you think you can work with him over the next week and add that element in where he's more comfortable, okay, then you could make that switch in a match. You know, though. You know what you've seen now. It's not just a hypothetical. That's what you have to get out of games like this.
And then he finishes up by saying, I know it's preseason, and that explains some, but color me concerned. I know Mulroney and Hosetu help as well, but it wasn't pretty or all that effective.
No, it wasn't pretty or effective, but it's preseason. And that's honestly the overriding thing here. Hosetu definitely will raise your level. I think Mulroney would have been a guy who could have given a spark in a game like this. If it was a competitive match and you start with the lineup you did, I could easily see Mulroney coming on maybe for Campbell before you went to a line of four to see if then moving Walks inside and Mulroney playing as a left wing back to give you speed on both sides who can get in behind, if that would have opened the game up. I could have seen that being the first sub. So it is what it is. You have to learn these things, and it needs to be better, 100%. I'm not concerned yet because I'm not worried about results yet. They didn't lose in preseason. That's great. You know, the defense was good, didn't really concede many goals. That's great. It's preseason. It doesn't count. It doesn't matter outside of building to next Tuesday, which then builds to the following Tuesday, which then builds to Nashville, and it continues to build because that's what a season's like.
El Monteflo had 2 points to make. We'll go through the first one here.
Okay.
Hashtag Overreaction Wednesday. I'm not disappointed by what I saw last night, but I was a bit frustrated we didn't create more in attack. But I think the team did well to push through tired legs in the last 20 minutes to keep a clean sheet and had some chances too.
Yeah, they didn't create as much as they need to. I completely agree. I think some of that was positioning and preparing for Motagua, sitting deeper because of what you expect a little bit to face next week. I did like that you were creating chances late, and that's a good sign because things changed not just in the shape, but in positioning on the field. A player like Pitti dropping deeper to be more of a deep-lying playmaker as opposed to playing up next to Joseph or right behind him, dropping in and trying to create from a deeper spot, and it was effective. So I like that they were problem solving, and it was better when they finished than it was when they started. I like where that went, and that's why you have to get these kinds of games.
Second point, also, we saw the team trying to use possession to see out the game, which was encouraging. The flexibility of the team really stood out, and though the game wasn't pretty, I'm content with the 90 minutes played. If they do this at Motagua, it's a good result for any away leg.
Yeah, if you can get that kind of result, absolutely it's a good away leg. And that's what you were working towards. You know, that's exactly what you were working towards. We've got a little bit of this. It's from, I think, 30 minutes ago in Monterrey, and it is translated as an official communication from Monterrey. Translated, today the notification received by the player Rodolfo Pizarro was received in our offices in the sense that in order to suit his interests, he unilaterally terminates his contract with the Monterrey Rayados Football Club since his desire is to continue his career with the new MLS franchise based in Miami. There had been reports, and Paul Tenorio's had it, that the release clause had been paid. It was around $12 million. There are reports out of Mexico saying that it was closer to $20 million, and those reports have continued as well. Tenorio has stuck to his $12 million figure. Don't know where the actual truth is, but it sounds like Pizarro forced Monterrey's hand here. And that's an important element to this, because he could have stayed, I think, if he had wanted to, and they would have fought it. Now, remember, there has been threats of FIFA. There's been threats of things going to another degree here. And this whole thing about the release clause is valid for some, but not valid for others, et cetera, et cetera. It's been complicated to the point that on Locura Deportiva, the sporting director for Monterrey, Dulio Davino, said about Pizarro, he could have handled this better. I don't know. I mean, he was in Miami, then he joined the team, and then they pulled him from the Copa MX game last night. He didn't play because I guess this finally got to the point that it was going to get done. So Rodolfo Pizarro will be the big-time designated player for Miami. I'm going to try to refrain from calling them Inter Miami. I don't want the blue and black team in Milan to start yelling at me, but looks like he's headed to Miami. That's what Monterrey is saying, and it sounds almost official, just waiting on the Miami announcement.
Game update from exhibition season in Charlotte tonight. The Independents beat Tormenta by the score of 4-2.
Okay, random update.
There's a scoreboard update.
Okay, we need a sponsor for the scoreboard update. All right,
yes.
What else we got on the timeline?
Tafka. My pessimism monkey is crawling up my leg again. He had gone to get a banana. I thought I'd lost him. Now he's back.
Oh, boy, here we go.
The 3-4-3 looks as inept as it did this time last year, except now I can't see any real shape at all. I feel like total soccer, in quotes, can create beautiful moments, but can often risk chaotic disorganization with no end product. We saw the latter last night.
I don't know what people want. I don't know what people want. Do you want the team to be super rigid and organized and defensive? Do you want them to play in a way that, yeah, at times it is hard to follow because you've got people moving into different spots. You've got Brooks Lennon coming over to the left. You've got an overload happening on the right. You've got Franco Escobar bombing forward. You've got Meza stepping up into the midfield. I don't know what would make people happy. And honestly, I don't think there's an answer. I'm being very rhetorical here because I don't think there is one answer. You do want to see it look, air quotes, organized. I really don't want to see it look rigid. I don't think that is the way to win matches in the game today. I don't think that's the best way to play now, is to be, you're a right back, you stay in this channel, you don't go anywhere else, period. No, you can't come inside. No, don't do that. That's not allowed. No, you can't get near that guy. Nope. You stay right there. That's U12 stuff. That's not the modern game anymore. So you've got to be fluid. You've got to be able to do it when it is not clicking. You get what Tafka's talking about. I don't think it looked like that last night. I didn't get that sense. I didn't think it looked like it was in sync, but I didn't think it looked unorganized. So I'll put that one out there. I didn't think it looked that way. I like what the 3-4-3 can bring you, but the 3-4-3 will hinge upon the two central midfielders, the wing backs, being able to make you defend with 7, but also give you the ability to attack with at least 5. And they have to be able to do both. And when they're not in sync in transition, that's where it looks weird. Because you can get caught out wide if the wingbacks aren't in their spots to defend. You can get caught through the middle if you don't have the central midfielders covering like they're supposed to. And then when it transitions to the attack, Barco, Pitti, Joseph can be on a bit of an island if they don't get that wingback coming up to help, or both wingbacks coming up to help, or a wingback and a central midfielder coming up to help. And if the two central midfielders are often doing the same thing, where they're both going in a line, that can get out of whack too. So the 3-4-3 works when the 4 part of it is in sync and locked in, when to drop, when to go, when some need to go and some need to drop, and the transitions, offense to defense, defense to offense, are good. The 3 center backs, the 3 up top, those are your north and south pole, essentially. Everything else is going to come around that. And when they're doing it correctly, it's beautiful to watch, and it's very difficult for any team to deal with. When it gets out of sync, it can get a little jagged. Last night was maybe a little jagged, but I just didn't think Atlanta was sharp more than anything, and I think they got tired. I didn't think they looked like they didn't know how to play it. They just weren't 100% switched on, and fitness is part of that. Altitude's part of that. Preseason's part of that.
Couple of thoughts from Nick Lamphere tonight. So far, it seems to be relying on individual moments of magic from our DPs. If we're trying to play a possession-based game in a similar vein as a Pep Barca team, then it requires fast passing and tons of movement off the ball, and so far, I have not seen either.
I would remind you how many times Lionel Messi bailed out a Barca team that was bereft of ideas because he's Lionel Messi. Now, Pity Martinez isn't Lionel Messi, but this also isn't La Liga. So can Pity Martinez give you those moments? You're banking on it. You're paying him to. You're hoping that he can. You're not relying on that only. But, yeah, you have top attacking players that you expect to be able to solve problems. Barco, Pity are expected to be able to create those opportunities. There's nothing wrong with that. The movement off the ball does have to be better. I completely agree with Nick in that regard. And that's something that does need to start to happen more, because that's been a bit of a consistent thread. But the idea that Pep teams, that possession teams are always getting everybody forward, no, that's not always the case. And there are times where you can't, based off your situation or your opponent, and you do rely on your top players to perform. That's why they're your top players. That's okay.
In the first half, this is still from Nick, in the first half, Escobar threw up his hands every time he was on the ball, begging for movement to open passing lanes. I realize this is still a preseason friendly, but so far we've struggled to break teams down, and ball movement has been far too slow, and there's one more paragraph to follow.
Yeah, all those things are correct, and those are things that need to speed up, and generally they do with time, but yeah, that time, they need to speed up 100%. I talked about it a lot on the broadcast last night, that the decision-making needed to be faster. The ball's coming to you, you need to know where you're going quicker. It needs to be 1-2 touch. It just needs to be faster, and they need to get there, for sure.
And Nick's final thought was, I love possession-based soccer and death by 1,000 passes, but can we please look more like a Cruyff or Pep team and less like a Louis van Gaal team? On a brighter note, I think Joseph, Pitti, and Barco are going to be very exciting to watch this season.
Yeah, but I don't see this looking like a Louis van Gaal team at all. I think that's an easy thing to go to. And honestly, he gets a bad rap sometimes. I think a lot of people focus in on his Manchester United teams that got ponderous at times. There's been others in his career too, but that's the ones that I think most people think of because those were his last teams. His Ajax teams in the mid-'90s were not that. I didn't get that sense. You can get vertical in this kind of system. And Frank comes from a knowledge tree of both Cruyff and Louis van Gaal. And I think he's trying to find that balance between being organized, being responsible defensively, not giving games away, not being reckless, but also getting forward and scoring goals. And that's a tough balance to strike at times. And I think Atlanta's done a pretty good job of that over the first season with Frank de Boer. And you would expect that this one would be even better. And that's what needs to happen. To get there, it has to be sharper, has to be faster. These are things that have to happen. But you look at any team like Nick's describing, any possession team, you go through these phases at times in a season, especially early in a preseason, where the idea is possession, the idea is to keep the ball, the idea is to control the game, but the movement's not where it needs to be. So the options going forward isn't where it needs to be. So you have to go sideways, and you have to look for another option. You have to keep looking for the other option, and you can't find that same page. Barcelona's went through it at different points. It happened under Pep. It's happened under others. That's why you're constantly changing it. That's why you're adding a new player into the team. That's why you're making a sub here. That's why you're tweaking positioning here, because that opens things up. Right now, you're trying to build the base. You're trying to build the foundation. And Frank has worked really hard on the 3-4-3 as a foundational element of this team this year. But, and we've seen it in the last two games, you've went to a line of 4 in the second half. And we saw that last year as well. So to be able to do both, you need it because you need to know how to break a team down. But right now you're focused on that foundation. And maybe in that foundational shape, there aren't spaces. The other team's set up to take that away from you. Okay, then you got to find plan B, and you got to make a move. And could that move be changing the shape? Yep. Could that move be, like we saw late last night, Pity Martinez dropping deeper and hitting longer passes to open the game up? Yep. Can it be a substitution? Yeah. Can it be a Jake Mulroney coming off the bench with speed? Absolutely. Could it be an Adam John coming in up top and moving Joseph maybe over into one of the Pitti or Barco roles to open the game up a little bit? It could. If you have to get direct, you can't build up, play to John, let him knock it down and bring others into the play. I think he did a pretty good job of that in Birmingham. You have to be able to build the foundation first and then play off of that. And this is a team that's still building it. So it does take time, but no team is 100% perfect in possession, playing fast, everybody in sync all the time. That's why you see lineup changes in a season. That's why you see new things, new elements, new introductions. It's why you don't train the same way the whole season. So it's going to be a fascinating one because the interview with Counterattack, I know I keep referencing it, it really makes me feel good about Frank de Boer and Atlanta United not wanting to just be a good team in this league, but to be a team that is completely well-rounded and can win any which way the situation calls for. I love that ambition because there haven't been many MLS teams in the history of the league to aspire to that, to aspire to be complete, to aspire to be able to beat you via possession and 70% of the ball in a match, to be able to beat you with 40% of the ball and counterattack, to be able to beat you in a variety of ways. That's a cool thing to watch build. And it's a building process. So I understand the watching it last night and being like, I want it to be better now, but it is a process. And that process, test 1 comes up next Tuesday, and it's not going to be easy.
Barbara Price, using the hashtag overreaction after game, wanted to know if do you still think Gazan hasn't lost a step after last night?
No, I don't think he's lost a step. I thought he came off his line well. I mean, if you want to talk about penalties are penalties. I mean, and I think there was one that I felt like maybe he could have got to, but those were some good penalties last night from Leones Negros players.
There were a couple upper 90 in the upper right-hand corner as you're watching. I think the one penalty that you're talking about is the one that was to his right, camera left, that it looked like he almost had a piece of it and it went underneath his arms as he was fully extended.
Yeah, there was one that I was like, okay, could have had that, but I've never been somebody who's going to criticize a goalkeeper for not saving a penalty. Penalties are scored 80 to 85% of the time. It's dropped over the years. It used to be, I remember 9 out of 10. For some reason, that sticks with me when I was coming up in the game, that penalties are made 90% of the time. Maybe it's 80% now. It's still 80%. You can't fault a goalkeeper for not making a save on a penalty like that. I really don't think that's fair. I think in the run of play, I thought he was good, and I was completely fine with it.
Yeah, there was the one save in the 50th. There was the one in the 67th when the Leones Negros had the really good chance, and then when he came out and challenged Sanchez in the 75th. So he's still out there being aggressive and can still make the big saves and run a play.
Yeah, I don't think he's lost a step.
Brad Shoemake. Why is it that work permit issues come up for Atlanta United and other clubs after new signings are already playing? Makes sense that work permits.
And I don't know. We talked about it a little bit, and I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know. I don't know why they come up. I don't know the process. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the differences between playing in Birmingham versus playing out of the country. I'm assuming that there would be if you're in the midst of a visa process. Maybe you can't travel yet. I don't know. Maybe re-entry into the country would be the issue. I don't know. I'm not sure on those things. So it's happened for a lot of teams, and it feels like it's happened more this season than it ever has in the past. So I really don't know, but I think it's pretty fair to say that Atlanta, in terms of immigration, in terms of what they've done on the green card side, has been ahead of the curve. Maybe Miami has caught up with them with getting Pellegrini and Carranza green cards before they even play a game. But, I don't think that you can fault the teams in this. I don't think it's the team's fault. I don't think it's the team's not doing due diligence. It's just the process that the government has.
The red tape that you have to go through. And sometimes the governmental machine takes its own sweet time when it wants to process things.
Yeah, and in a perfect world, you make signings happen really early to be able to do that. But transfer windows don't operate in the same pathway and same time frame as the government on these things. So you're kind of stuck, and you have to make the best of it. And Chicharito, I believe, got his P1 visa today. I saw that at ProSoccerUSA.com. So he's able to join in completely. I don't know why some people can't train. Some people can. Some people can play in behind closed doors games, but some people can play in a game. Some people can't. I don't know those things, and I'm not sure what the legal ramifications are.
Kefsi this evening. Alarm! ! #Overreaction Wednesday. Keeper's out of the box again, and then follows that up with a crying emoji.
What?
Crying laughter emoji. Sorry.
What?
But it's just keeper's out of the box again. I don't know. I need some details. But some positives. With Campbell coming in for Miles and switching guys around the field, they still managed to draw in regulation. Would have loved to have seen a Pitti diagonal pass to Joseph or a long shot pan out.
Yeah, Pitti, I thought Pitti tried to put the team on his back a little bit. I like to see that. Did it work to where you got a goal? No, it didn't this time. But, man, he nearly connected with Joseph a couple of times, and he had a good long-range effort. So I'll take it. It's building blocks. I really don't care about the result. I care about the way the team played. And these 3 games that I've seen in their entirety, Elfsborg, Birmingham, and Leones Negros, I feel like I can see where they're going. They're not there yet, but they can see it in the distance. And can you get to a point close enough to that for next Tuesday to get a result? And if you come out of there with a draw or you win or a goal in a 1-goal loss, you'll take all of those and be happy and come take care of business in the second leg. It's not about, and this is where expectations are very important, it's not about going to Honduras and winning 3-0. If you do that, that's an incredible performance. Or you just everything fell your way. Don't know. Depends on how the game goes. You can win 3-0 and you can play badly too. That can happen. But it's about results Tuesday. And then from the rest of the way, it's about results, and it's about getting the result, period. And in CONCACAF, it's about advancing. Whatever it takes to advance, you got to advance. And first test is on Tuesday. So everything that we've seen up to this, are they going to, if they played that way last night in Honduras, would they be guaranteed the scoreless draw? Maybe not, because you're going to have a Honduran team that is playing to win it, not just playing to get a bunch of guys experience. Maybe it's different. You're going to have to raise your game a little bit. Also changes when the lights get a little bit brighter for a game that counts for your squad as well. So we'll see how this team grinds, but they're going to have to be ready to grind a little bit next Tuesday.
Nathan Pugh, he starts off in all capital letters. I know, then goes back to consonants. He says, you play the lowercase. You play the match on the field, not on spreadsheets. But at 538, has Atlanta at second most likely to make the playoffs, first in the East to get a first-round bye, and second likeliest to win the Cup. People need to calm down over a friendly and have Frank DeBoer switch to a 4-3-3. And Orlando is predicted to come in 22 of 26 because they're terrible.
Yeah, I'm not buying that they have to switch to 4 in the back. I think there's going to be moments where they do. I think there's going to be moments where they don't. But I don't think they have to. That's the key part of it for me. I think you can make the 3-4-3 work. I think it can be really effective. It's all about that central midfield pairing. I think the wingbacks, we kind of know what you're dealing with right now. That central midfield pairing can make or break the 3-4-3. And if you can't find the right pairing in that type of idea, then okay, you need to shift. And I thought last night Jeff looked better in the 4-3-3. It's a little more comfortable for him. He wasn't being asked to do quite as much. And it was just old habit for him to be that number 6 in that situation. Emerson Hyndman needs to be better. I didn't think he was at the level that we've seen him play at last night. And that was in either shape. I think he needs to be better because he's going to be pushed. Eric Remedi has looked good in preseason, in my opinion. He's had some turnovers that have concerned me, but he's also played with a personality that I think this team needs at times in that position. Can Josetu give you that personality? Yeah, I think he can. Can those two play together? Maybe. Does Hyndman factor into that? Yeah, I think he will. He's going to push. It's going to be competitive. And I think the idea that you still have to go out and get central midfielders, I mean, at what expense? Because it's Adams, it's Lorenowitz, it's Hyndman, it's Remedi, it's Josetu. 5 guys for those 2 central midfield spots. That's not counting walks. That's not counting Meza, who can step into those spots. So if you go add another one, and you're going to play 2 of them, because even if you go to 4 in the back, you're only going to play 2 of those guys, for the most part. Because you're going to play Pitti or Barco in that number 10 role in that scenario. If you play 3 of them together, I think it's a more defensive group. Because then you're going to play Pitti and Barco out wide, but they're going to tuck inside. And is that going to work from a balance perspective? It's kind of bold what Atlanta and DeBoer are doing here. Because when you look at teams with players like Pitti and Barco, usually you don't have 2 of them at the same time. You have 1. And you build the team to support that 1. You know, whether it was Lionel Messi at Barcelona, when he came inside, you created the shape to work for him. That's why Zlatan came and went, because you couldn't play the 2 of them. It was about Messi. And you built the team to get the best out of Messi. It's hard to build a team around 2 guys like Barco and Pitti. And, hey, Frank said it last year and took some stick for it about it was one or the other, not both. Well, he's playing both now. And that takes a lot from the rest of the group to get the best out of them, because I don't think you get the best of Barco and Pitti if they're playing wide in a front three. I think you get the best out of those guys if they are playing in the 3-4-3 kind of shape where they're tucked in, call it a 3-4-2-1, whatever. I think that's where you get the best out of them because I think they're both at their heart number 10s and different kinds of number 10s. You know, Barco for me is closer to a playmaking number 10 like a Juan Ramon Riquelme. Pitti is more of an anarchic kind of number 10 like a Diego Maradona in that, look, Diego's going to do what Diego does. You know, Messi does what Messi does. The more you try to control him and say, do this, don't do that, the less you get. You need to put them in a position and let them do what they want. It's hard to have two guys that you're putting into a position and let them do what they want. So those central midfielders behind them have to facilitate that. And that's going to be an interesting process to see what gives you the best way of doing it. I don't think, and maybe you can, but it would be interesting to see how it would play out. If you tried to play 4 in the back, and if you tried to play 3 central midfielders, and Barco and Pitti in a similar type of role as we've seen in preseason where they are tucked inside, you would be overloading the middle of the field with 5. And, hey, Pep's done that. Teams that want to thrive on possession and control the game with midfielders, they've done it. Your Spain teams of the World Cup winning squad, the 2 European Championship winning squads, they wanted to play with every midfielder they could find. If they could put 10 midfielders out on the field, they would find a way to do it. That can be tough. And can you get the balance out of that? Can you do anything out wide in that case? That's going to be hard. It's going to be, your outside backs picking their spots to go forward. Does that mean your 2 of your central midfielders no, or the one on that side? If it's Franco Escobar is the right back, let's say, then the right-sided central midfielders got to know, like, hey, I got to drop over here. I got to slide over here because we want Escobar to go and join the attack and be a surprise. So I got to drop. You got to have those rotations right. It's tough to be able to incorporate both Barco and Pitti in positions that suit them and get the best out of them. And that's what you're paying for, and that's the effect that they can have. It's very difficult, and it takes time because other guys have to play for them to a degree. Joseph's different. Everybody's playing for Joseph because he's your goal scorer. But he's not somebody who you want to get 50, 60 touches like Barco and Pitti. Joseph, you want to finish things. Barco and Pitti, you want to drive things. So you've got to build the team to get the best out of them. And that's not easy to do because most teams don't try to get 2 guys in that spot. They get 1. You don't normally see a team with 2 number 10s, 2 enganches, if you're looking at the Argentine way of it. It's 1. And it's bold to try to do it this way. I love the attempt. I love that you're trying to get the 2 of them on the field together in that spot and not sacrificing one by putting them out wide. Now, in some games, you might have to. You might. And if that's the case, that's the case. That's fine. I'll be curious to see how this continues to evolve. And that's what it's going to be. That's what this season's going to be for me, is it's going to be an evolution. You're going to go through a run of matches where, man, it is clicking and it's beautiful. And you're going to go through some matches where, look, the opponents take that away and they just clog things up. And they say, you're not going to beat us here. And that's where you're going to have to get something out wide to open the game up or move the pieces around, or Barco or Pitti are going to have to drop deeper or move out into those wide spots. That's where the recognition of what's happening in the match is going to be really important. I like what they're trying to do. And I like that it's a bold way of playing. And I like that it is trying to get 2 players that are the types of players that I love to see, because you don't come across them every day. You don't come across number 10s in the U.S. like this every day. We've struggled as a country to produce these players because a lot of times in the United States, they're not valued. They're not given the opportunity to play in these spots. They're thrown out wide, so you've got cover behind them. They're not encouraged to take chances like Pity Martinez. Pity is such a risk-taking player. In the U.S., that would have either been coached out of him or he wouldn't have risen through the ranks like he did. And that's a shame. I think we need to encourage these kinds of players. We need to try to facilitate for these kinds of players because these are the special guys. These are the players that change games. I love a holding midfielder too. I love a great right back. I love the other positions and what they bring. But man, a number 10 is special. A number 10 like Barco and Pitti, who are different kinds of number 10s, you cherish them. You cherish them, and look, in MLS, you know that these are two guys who potentially could move on to other clubs, other leagues. You cherish the time you have with them. Miguel Almiron was a number 10 here, a very different kind of number 10. And you think fondly back to what he gave this team in a role that was built around getting the best out of him. Now you're trying to build a team that gets the best out of Barco and Pitti, and you're trying to do it in a different way. And it's fascinating when you get down to those kinds of nuts and bolts of it. And what is going to get the best out of those two players? Because if those two players play to their full potential, I don't think there's anybody who can stop this attack. I don't. But it's going to be very hard on a regular basis to get the absolute best out of both of them because it's just hard to field two guys who do those things. Normally it's one. Most teams don't look at trying to field two. Atlanta's going to do it. And that's bold. I love it.
Shiva this evening. Doug tweeted yesterday Atlanta seems outnumbered when attacking and on defense. I have to agree and ask you, why does it seem like that?
It's the transition. We've talked about it a lot. It's the wing backs, it's the central midfielders transitioning to defend when they need to defend and transitioning to the attack when they need to attack. A lot of it is recognition. A lot of it is build-up play too, because you can facilitate that transition through your possession build-up play. But in a game like last night, you're going to basically shade to the defense because it's job one to get the 0 on the board because you're preparing for Motagua. So now when you get down to Honduras next week, you're going to see the team play safer, conservative, and yeah, you're going to ask the three guys up front to take on 4, to take on 5. Absolutely, you're going to ask them to do that because if you come out of there with a scoreless draw, you are happy. So it's not always about number one entertainment above everything else. It can't be, not to get the results. And this is a time right now where you're going to prepare to get a result next Tuesday and manage that match as best as you can. So if that means Barco, Pitti, Joseph are a little outnumbered, you're counting on their ability to find something for you.
Cairo with a couple of questions. I was geo-blocked from watching the game, so please explain. 1, why? Why restrict access to your product?
It's not an Atlanta United thing because MLS has done this across the board, and I don't know why.
2, why aren't I seeing more of a panic about Miles' injury?
Because nobody knows anything. I'm glad there's not a panic about it because nobody knows. The fact that he walked off, I think, is one reason you're not seeing a panic. If he'd been carted off, it would have been a whole different thing. But nobody knows, and you won't really know until he's back at the training facility and seeing the team doctors.
And then final question from Cairo. We have to get Arzamendi now, right?
No. I don't think you're going to be able to because Cerro Porteño has not added another player in that position to be able to move him. And I don't know if you're going to have the cost to. I don't know if you're going to have the cost of the ability to go get him and Josetu. And, yeah, you've got injuries right now, but you don't panic by a big buy like that to fix injuries. Bello's not going to be out for the season. Bello, you don't know how long he's going to be out, but no thought of him being out for a long period of time. Same for Castillo. He's week to week right now. You don't go panic by whatever the amount would be, and that number seemed to fluctuate. Some people thought it was $6 million for him. Others thought it was $7 million for the two of them. I don't know. But it would be at least a high TAM deal, and maybe you've got the space to do it. I don't know, but that would lock you in. You wouldn't be able to make any other changes without subtractions. So if you want to keep a spot open for the summer to go shopping, you can't do it. Maybe you go get him in the summer. Maybe not. But I don't think you panic because of injuries and go get him now. If you haven't gotten him by now, I'm assuming it's cost. I'm assuming it's, look, the value's not there yet. You don't change it just because of a couple temporary things. You can't. I think if you do anything in that regard, like Bradley Camden-Feo was with the team last night, he's on a 2s deal. Do you sign him to a reserve contract or a supplemental roster spot to be able to play in MLS in the short term, but mostly play for Atlanta United too, to give you one more left-sided player? Maybe. But Anton Walks on the left side, you got to look at Campbell, you got to look at Adams, or those guys you can factor into it. I just don't think you go panic buy on a big purchase.
Kevin from Charlotte, a statement on hashtag Overreaction Wednesday. It's preseason, it's preseason, it's preseason, it's preseason, it's not preseason anymore. That's his overreaction for the day.
Nope, not anymore. So, I mean, that's been the conversation, and it has to be because it literally is preseason. Like, that's just a fact. The games don't count, so you're managing them differently. Well, now that's not the case, so it has to be better. Is it going to be its absolute best? No, and you can't expect it to because it's a process. But does it need to be better? Yeah, it does. It does, 100%. Nothing wrong with that.
A couple of thoughts from Sean Vergara, otherwise still known as Quick Trigger Penso. First thought is, who do we need to get Darren in contact with to get these visas done quicker?
I think they know people. They've gotten green cards faster than anybody else in the league. I think they know people. It's okay. Yep.
Second thought, has there ever been a game where Joseph had one shot on goal? I know it's preseason, but what things, parentheses, players, need to do better for CONCACAF Champions League next week?
Yeah, there's been games. It happens sometimes. I think we've talked about it. I mean, what they need to do better, it has to be quicker in terms of decision-making. The ball has to move faster. Rotations have to be better in terms of when to go forward, when to drop back. It's sharpness. That's what has to be better. And last night was not good enough to beat a top team. Could it be good enough to get the result you need at Motagua? Maybe. But you don't want to risk it. You want to play better.
Update from Phoenix Rising. To your point, we still need to get a sponsor for these game updates.
Well, we don't normally do game updates, John.
No, but Lagos Kunga scored in the 43rd for Phoenix Rising in their game against Red Bull, which is on. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Heinley wants to know on his hashtag Overreaction Wednesday, how did we miss so many penalties?
Because you missed them. I got nothing. I don't know how much you've practiced penalties as a group because it's preseason and you're not taking them yet. Maybe you have. Maybe you've practiced them a little bit. Honestly, it's good that you did it because you got a chance to look at some people taking penalties ahead of potentially taking penalties to get past Motagua or Club America or an Open Cup game. So now you've got footage on it. That's good. How you missed them, I don't know. I'm trying to think back to him.
But I mean, I give Hernandez a lot of credit for the saves.
Yeah, he made a couple really good saves. There was one that was an easier save, and I want to say it was Heinemann.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't.
It was closer in toward the
It
was closer in toward the middle of the goal than the others. I think Heinemann's was the easier one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's probably not been a priority just yet. Well, now, and not this week, but next week, if it's needed in that second leg, I'm sure in that week you'll maybe do a little bit of work on penalties. Just, again, part of the process, and it's not a priority yet. It will be coming up.
Heath Bradley with a hashtag on par reaction Wednesday. He says, we put in long miles for a friendly at altitude on short rest in preseason. That's why the end product looked rough. This was a stress test, in my opinion, an unnecessary one, and you can't take anything away on how our form looked, just how they coped.
That's a really good way of putting it. It was a stress test. This was the trial run of, I guess, Hell's Kitchen when you bring people in after you've worked on something or whatever, and Gordon Ramsay like fires up all the crazy things to happen on a night of service. This was that.
What was this nonsense that you created at this table?
That's a horrible Gordon Ramsay.
Pretty much.
Wow, that was really bad. I don't even know what accent that was. It kind of morphed.
I can't quite figure out idiot sandwich yet. I want to get that one figured out.
Yeah, that was odd. I need to get some Gordon Ramsay sound clips, obviously.
I think you do.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. It was a stress test. And, yeah, it's how you deal with it. And they dealt with it okay. It can be better. There's room to grow, which is where you want to be. You don't want to be coming out of a game right now in a game like this and say, well, we're as good as we can be. There's nothing we can do. We just got to try to maintain this, because you can't. You can't maintain top form from February 12 until November 12. Just can't.
We have a lot of folks who have commented still that are in the timeline, and we've hit the 2 hours.
Jeez. We'll do a couple more, and then we'll save the rest for tomorrow.
Okay. Daniel Price's the overreaction thoughts, and he actually did go into players' overreaction Wednesday thoughts as well, but here's his overarching thoughts. The match was okay. I thought it was a good test for Atlanta, but man, it fills me with lots of questions. It felt too slow in transition, didn't feel sharp. We all know it's preseason, but we go for real in less than a week. Their legs were heavy. Granted, they were playing against nonstop fresh legs, but still, I thought defensively it was better, but on the attacking front, it was a little disjointed. They need to figure it out, and fast. Joseph needs to get his finishing, got to find that next gear.
Yeah. All those things are true. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's something where I see some reactions after games like this about like, Joseph, It's like, dude, he scored 88 goals in 100 games. You know, cut the man some slack. Same with Pitti and Barco. It's like, look, these are talented players. Did they have the best game of their life? No, they didn't. They didn't. Can they play better? Yeah, we've seen it. So, we overreact about when it's not perfect? And Daniel's not. I'm just saying in general, you can't not and live a stress-free life, because if you're overreacting about top players having not a top performance, it's like there's other things to overreact about. Those guys are going to be fine. They'll get there. You can believe in that, I think. It's, the transition, the sharpness, the quickness of play, the movement off the ball. Those are things that are more concerning. And those are things that need time to continue to build. And it needs to be better next week than it was this week. And then it needs to be better the following week.
His individual player notes. Campbell impressed me, played extremely well. I really, really, in all caps, like Meza, best pickup so far this season by far. Liked Rametti when he came on. Escobar was okay, played fine, got beat really bad once. Joseph needs work. Barco was okay.
Okay, hold on. And
sure.
I'm not picking on Daniel, but everybody's going to get beat once. Like, if you're getting beat once, cool, you had a good night at the office. Sometimes there's an expectation of players being a 10 out of 10 on a regular basis, and you just can't. It's impossible. You're going to have bad passes. You're going to have bad shots. You're going to get beaten occasionally. It's how you deal with those situations when they occur. Did somebody cover for you? Did you get covered? Did you recover? Did you find other ways to impact the game if you're not creating chances? Things like that. So I think sometimes it can be way too harsh of a scale that the judging happens on. Nobody's playing 10 out of 10 multiple times in a season, let alone in preseason.
Then Daniel says, PT was okay, needs to bury those. He is so close, right? 7-0, 6-0s. Brooks needs to work on his crosses. I don't like Hyman.
Bury what from Pitt? I mean, he had the shot from
bury
distance,
those,
forced to save.
Chances.
I know. I'm just saying, like, he didn't have a bunch of chances to bury. He had a good shot from distance that was saved, and he had a free kick that was just wide. How many people bury free kicks on a regular basis? I'm making a point, and I'm using Daniel's tweet to do it a little bit. Sometimes, because this team has been so good, and you've got players that have been so good, there's an unfair expectation of what's good. You know, I mean, Sebastian Giovinco leads MLS in history with goals from free kicks with 13. You know, next is like 9. It's not easy to do. Beckham didn't score on every free kick he took. You know what I mean? Like, it's just sometimes because the bar has been set so high that expectation level is too high, and it's unfair. You know, and I think this is something that comes with time. When you see, when we see the team play more, you see more games. It's like, okay, now you start to see like where the balance is. What's the average performance? Because that's what I look for out of guys. Like, I'm not looking 10 out of 10 every game. I want to know what your average performance is. Are you a 6? Are you a 6 average? Okay, cool. Can you give me some 7s and 8s? Can you give me an extended run of 7s and 8s? Are you a player who's normally a 7? Okay, cool. Can you maintain that and not have some 5s thrown in, not have some 4s mixed in? Can you be pretty consistently a 7? Cool. If you're a 5, hey, then I'd like to get better than that, but can you at least be consistent and not have some 2s or 3s? Okay. It's finding what that balance is, and I think having a realistic expectation. Because otherwise it can turn into kind of being nitpicky and then getting disappointed about every game because of something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it creates an unfair expectation, especially for a preseason game that no team can meet. No player can meet. Lionel Messi's not a 10 out of 10 every game.
And Daniel wrapped up by saying he didn't like Hyndman and Larry together, think it didn't pair well. And why can't we win at penalties? We are cursed. Anyone know any good curse cleansing rituals? I think that's a live chicken.
It's not a curse. It's just the second time. It's okay. The Hyndman-Larinowitz pairing didn't work very well. And I think they can play together. I think they actually do complement each other pretty well. But they didn't last night. And I don't know if that's all on Larinowitz not being 100% fit, if that is all on Hyndman having a bad day, if it's just a bad day at the office. I don't know. But, yeah, the pairing didn't work. And that creates opportunity for Remedi. That creates opportunity for Adams. That creates opportunity for Rossetto. And we'll see who takes it. Because that pairing right there, I don't love it to go into Motagua. And you're likely not going to have Rossetto for that unless the government gets a visa done quickly, which hopefully they do. But if you don't have him, well, does Remedi come into that? Who changes? Does Adams come into that? How do you change it around, or do you change the shape completely? What do you do? So I didn't love that pairing last night because of what you got out of it. I think they can play together, but it didn't work last night.
All right, we got a handful more. Do you want to save them for the morning? All right,
let's do it. Come on, let's do it. Let's go.
All right.
Rah!
Rio Integridade at Sideline Q. What you may hear in the background is Iron Bowl basketball, and the boss is living and dying with every possession upstairs. So much like, so if you hear that, that's what's going on.
Is Iron Bowl basketball actually a thing?
When Auburn and Alabama play. I know.
But do they really care?
With Auburn going to the Final Four last year and Alabama attempting to knock them off said perch as the Alabama team in the SEC these days. I'm sure there is, yeah.
So they are temporarily carrying. Okay. Just wanted to make
temporarily carrying, and then what you also have is the presentation of the trophy by the the losing SGA president at halftime of this game, and they have
for the football game.
Yeah, from the football game, and so the losing SGA president has to come onto the other campus, sing the other school's alma mater, and present the trophy.
Well, that's kind of cool.
That's at halftime.
Okay, I like that.
So Rio Integridade, thanks for addressing the atmosphere and the state of the pitch. Saw someone yesterday blame the outcome on Joseph being fat. I didn't see that, but okay.
What?
Bruh. 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 Bruh.
That's craziness. I missed that one.
I did too. I didn't see it.
On the floor laughing.
Yes.
Have you ever seen anybody play the game called soccer?
Sometimes I wonder.
Yeah. Robert Farnsworth, do you think Walks or Meza could be molded into defensive mid-roles? I like Meza's distribution, long passes, and intelligence. I think Walks has the potential to find that identity in MLS later on. They could add a versatility for what Remedi and Adams lack in certain situations.
Both have that experience. I mean, I don't think you have to mold them into it. Both have played it. Meza played it for Necaxa against Monterrey in the semis of the Liguilla last season. And he was good in it. So both have the experience in it. I think Meza probably has a little bit more. I think he's just a little bit higher level player. I think his game is a little better suited there. Although Walks as a center back last night, he definitely looked more composed than we saw him there in 2017, which you would expect. So could he move into the central midfield? Potentially. I think Meza would be easier there, but then that would mean what's your center back pair behind? So if Campbell becomes more of a factor, hey, that opens up the possibility of doing it. If Walks becomes a center back option, you could move Meza into the midfield. I don't think Walks would beat out Adams, and I think Mo Adams could end up being a factor here if he's the close a game out sub. Okay, I think he can be a little bit more than that. We'll see. I don't know if Walks would beat him out in the middle of the midfield there. I think Walks might be more versatile to play elsewhere to open up the possibility. Meza stepping into that role could be an interesting thing that might happen from time to time. Necaxa used it to good effect last year. So could Frank de Boer use it as well? We'll see. Potentially. He's got the ability to do it.
Joe Bost with a laughing to tears emoji wants to know why the hell is Hyndman taking penalties. Hashtag overreaction Wednesday.
He was the one I didn't have taken one. I thought it would be Lennon. So you're still figuring it out. You know, it's your second penalty shootout ever, and it is your first under Frank de Boer, and it's preseason, and you didn't really work on anything to get ready for a penalty shootout in Guadalajara on February 11th. So it's all right. These are the five I want to see. Cool. Well, I don't know if you'll see Hyndman again, so it'll be somebody else. That's just part of it. It's all good.
Chris Hutchison, I like what Frank de Boer, Carlos, and Darren are doing with the team, and I hope to one day see Atlanta United sell a player to AFC Ajax. Isn't Motagua Stadium at about the same altitude as Guadalajara's? Why not just travel directly to Honduras, spend the week training at altitude? Hashtag overreaction Wednesday.
I don't think it's at the same altitude. It's at an altitude, but I don't think it's at as high of an altitude. And people have different opinions on it. I'm not a sports scientist, but in recent years, you've gotten more people say that the best way to deal with that altitude is to be there for as short of a period of time as you can. Go in as late as you can, play the game, and then get out so it doesn't have the effects on your body. Like, I mean, are you going to feel it a little bit in the game? Sure, but it's not as debilitating of an effect. If you go for a week, does that actually help you or does that hurt you? And sports scientists will argue about that. If you go for a few days, generally I think most say that it'll hurt you. Normally to truly train to play at altitude, you got to do it for an extended period of time. I don't know if a week is enough to affect it. So I think they can probably get more out of coming home, going into Honduras as late as possible and playing the match and then getting back and getting ready for the next week in Kennesaw.
The Colonel's in this evening. Good evening, Colonel, with a hashtag
Colonel?
Incredulous Reaction Wednesday.
Oh, okay, that's a new one. This could be frightening.
Getting some rumblings after Frank de Boer's answer on SiriusXM that the pitch quality in Guadalajara on Tuesday was poor and contributed to the performance and injury. Pitch looked good to me. Did I miss something?
He didn't say anything about it contributing to the injury. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he did kind of give you the impression that it wasn't great. it bobbled at times. Like, I mean, I noticed some, I want to say Pitty shot, like kind of popped up on him. Saw a couple others where it didn't roll true. Saw a little bit of people losing their footing. I didn't think it was bad. Was it pristine?
Some chunks that came up, and they were big chunks. Camera left toward the end line. I know there was one Barco run. It was in the second half, and he and the defender ended up taking up like 3 or 4 big chunks of grass in their challenge.
To a grass field. It's going to happen. Yep. It's very rare that you're going to find the pristine Wembley pitch, especially in Mexico and Central America. So maybe I just have a sliding scale of it. I didn't think it was that bad, but it had an effect. And I wonder if it had an effect on the passing. Was that pitch? Was that heavy legs? Was it just poor passing? I think the heavy legs definitely factored into it. I don't know how much the pitch did.
2 more before we go.
All right.
React to me. Is this thing on?
Give it a minute.
Come on.
Give it a sec, Rome. You might be able to rack Nick Brawley here for his hashtag
is there
overreaction.
A pause here?
Well, there is, and there has been for the last 2 hours and 16 minutes, sir. Nick Brawley, hashtag overreaction Wednesday. Next time, make sure at Mike Conti 929 gets his dessert before the match. His idea of the trophy being made of chocolate made me crave junk way too late at night.
Yeah, I did not have any dessert after the match. Yeah, it was kind of a quick turn, so we got it done. I like the trophy. I thought the trophy looked pretty good. I was down with it. I'm glad that Frank gets to bring the trophy home. It's a nice memento from a trip to Guadalajara.
And then Joe Boss to end the evening on par with his hashtag on par reaction Wednesday at Longshoe talks about 300,000 17s off the ledge yet again. We gonna be fine.
No, there's 1 million Twitter followers.
There's
more than 300,000. It's a million
tov.
now. It's the first MLS team to hit 1 million Twitter followers. Atlanta United. The league itself has, I think, 3.2 million. And Atlanta has over 1 million.
30% of the Twitter followers in the MLS as a league.
No, you don't know that. You don't know if they are all following the league. I said that Atlanta United has 1 million followers of their own.
Yes.
MLS has 3.2 million of their own. I don't know how much crossover or anything like that there is. So, launched in March of 2014, Atlanta United's Twitter account quickly owned one of the league's largest followings, taking the MLS lead in March of 2017. As of February 12th, the average MLS team had 291,000 followers. The closest to Atlanta are Seattle and the LA Galaxy. Seattle has 565.5, and LA Galaxy have 521.1. So almost double who's behind you. Pretty wild.
If you add the Galaxy and LAFC, Atlanta United still has 1/3 more.
No. Seattle has 565,000 and some change. Yeah. The Galaxy have 521,000 and some change. That's more than 1 million.
No, what I'm saying is if you add LA Galaxy and LAFC's, it's 764,000. And Atlanta still has 1/3 more than that.
Okay, well that's
or 1/4 more than that.
Los
Sorry,
Angeles, better than everybody else. It's all good. Twitter, Atlanta United owns it. Yeah,
there you go.
It does. I mean, it's almost doubled number 2. So I think that's a safe statement. It's a big deal. I mean, these things are important, and when Atlanta is starting to get into the conversation in terms of Twitter followers, Twitter engagement of the top teams in this hemisphere, and a lot of them, you're looking at Brazil, you're looking at Club America. You're looking at the top teams like Boca and River. Atlanta United's in that conversation more than any other team in MLS is. Now, Twitter's just one aspect of social media. Some clubs do great work on Instagram. Some do great work on Facebook. Others get into other things. But, hey, it's a cool milestone. So it's definitely worth celebrating on February 12th, 2020.
And the report from our stringer in Charlotte, apparently all 3 academy players got some reps tonight for Tormenta as they went up against the Charlotte Independents.
We have a stringer in Charlotte?
We do.
People might need to know what a stringer is if they are not hip with the lingo.
Well, there's, if you're in radio or TV, there are individuals who will be at a particular sporting event, and they will be the person who will give you the lowdown as to what happened in detail. And they will either file a game story, or they will phone into your radio show, or just shoot you a text to sit there and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here are the important things.
Okay. Not everybody knows what a stringer is, I assume. I'm just checking.
But yeah, we had a special stringer this evening who just
Do
gave
you want
us
to give them credit?
Yeah. Grand Exalted Poobah, Darren Van Tassel of South Georgia Tormenta, is giving us all of the deets, as the kids say, about what's going on with Tormenta going up against the Charlotte Independents.
There we go. We get an owner of a team being the correspondent for the day. We're going to give that man a shout-out.
Woo!
100%.
And, he just said that he thought he would check in. Nice to be healthy, and the new guys really are fitting in very well.
Excelente. Before we go, Bovada has odds on the MLS Cup winner. And I think they've changed. They have changed, actually, since I looked at these first. Atlanta United has moved up in the rankings to number 2 at plus 700. LAFC is number 1 at plus 400. Atlanta is the same odds as Seattle and Toronto, with New York City at plus 800. LA Galaxy, Minnesota, Montreal, Real Salt Lake, DC United round out the top 10. The best number on the board, in my opinion, is plus 4,000, and it's Columbus and Sporting Kansas City. Those are both at plus 4,000. The last one is Nashville at plus 15,000. Orlando, Cincinnati, Vancouver, Colorado are all plus 8,000. So there's your Bovada odds for the MLS Cup winner.
Huh. Okay.
Atlanta was at plus 1,000 a couple days ago, so it's moved up a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of folks in their juice boxes decided to shift that number slightly.
Slightly, yes.
But we are officially caught up. Anything else we need to promote before we go?
No. We have promoted the Wild Heaven West End appearance on Saturday. You can get your cans of El Jefe if you are there early. It's a limited run. It's the first time Wild Heaven has canned some beers, and we're part of the reason for it. That's kind of cool. So,
yes, very cool.
Get there early. We're going to have stuff going on from 10 to 12. We'll be hanging out. We'll be able to chat before we get on a microphone. Really excited that we have all of the official supporters groups hanging out with us and coming out to talk with us. Resurgence, Terminus Legion, Faction, Footy Mob, all going to have representatives there. I think they're all going to have tables there, too. If you're interested in getting to know the different groups and what makes them different, you get a chance to hang out with them as well. That's kind of the idea behind this, and it's something we want to start doing on an annual basis as a kickoff to the season where, we want to do a show and we want to talk. It's kind of what we do. But we also want people to get together and hang out and talk. So it's not just about us talking the whole time. There will be plenty of chances to talk to all kinds of people there and have a really cool limited edition beer and other great beers that Wild Heaven has, along with great food from Fina. Tacos, nachos are off the charts. So we hope to see y'all on Saturday. If you want to get a hat, if you want to get a beanie, if you want to get a scarf, we will have them on Saturday, and I think they're going to be in high demand on Saturday. So if you want to get one ahead of time, shoot me a message and let me know. If you want me to reserve one for you for Saturday, you might want to do that too.
Shoot him a message, let him know.
It's going to be fun on Saturday, so go ahead and make your plans for that. And that's about it. So, until tomorrow morning, almost 12 hours from now, we will be back then. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha PM, y'all.